I'm from Elsa Craig originally, and
Yeah.
I went to high school here. A lot of people my age moved away, and now it's starting to see them trickle back. So it is nice with the residential growth that we're experiencing.
Yep.
We're trying to make our communities connected. How you can do that is having a trail network that you can go from Main Street Park Hill
Yep.
to Main Street Elsa Craig to Main Street Nairn.
Welcome, Brandon. Economic development corporations are one of my favorite to have in a municipality, especially when they're forward thinking. Reason I say that is let's go back to the bull run, like 2020 to 2022, where things were absolutely bonkers. Fun fact, agents didn't even love that market. We would be writing 10 offers to get 2 accepted, working crazy hours. And I know everybody thought it was nuts for agents, but it wasn't healthy as a market. We experienced 5 years of growth in 2 years, right? So 2020 to 2025, Benjamin Tall looked at the stats and said, that's the growth we should have had, but we had it in 2 years, and then it got flatlined and dropped 20 to 30%. And if you look at the trend line, we're back on that trend line of 2020 to 2025. The reason why that's important for economic development corporations is what I noticed during the bull run was some municipalities that were the belle of the ball acted like it. It was very hard to do business. Then there were other communities that were open for business. And when I had people that wanted to invest, companies, move their families, build infrastructure, they ran to municipalities that were willing to show up at events like this and have conversations and talk about, like, how can I help you generate business? So I guess we'll start with that. Like, what is your background? How did you end up in your position? And then we'll get into the business end of it.
So I think important to note is we aren't an actual economic development corp.
Yep.
Our economic development is kind of two-tiered. We do work with our local or our upper tier county, and the county handles a lot of the major investment opportunities coming our way. So on the local level, we're focused more on our existing businesses, what lands we do have available for people who approach direct.
Yep.
But oftentimes the major players do come through our county. My background is I'm a community services background. Best way to describe myself is Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation, for those who know that. We went through the loss of our economic development officer, and in November there we had an opportunity to kind of restructure what we did. So I took on the director role of economic development. I have a strong background from North Middlesex. I know lots of the business owners current. I know lots of the residents currently. I spent 29 years here in my life. So so it's kind of been learn on the fly, but certainly some exciting things coming down the pipe for us economic development wise. The county is looking at different options there on how to improve that service as well. The one thing I'll say is we are very open to working with people to make sure that our community has what they need, which is important.
And when you were talking about, the larger commercial investments that are coming down the pipeline, I'm sure you're still keeping abreast of what's coming down the pipeline, right? You keep those connections?
Yes, we do. We do see that. We have our inventory of service lands that might accommodate them. Oftentimes the big ones, we would have to do some infrastructure investment to make happen.
Sure.
But we're open to those conversations and making sure that we're crossing our
T's and dotting your I's. Yeah, rather than saying, here, take this land, do what you want, and then have a whole bunch of angry neighbors. What are some of, you don't have to name company names, but what are some of the trends that you're noticing in terms of people that are looking in this area?
So right now, agri-food is big. I have an economic development committee that I work with, which represents, we have 9 local business owners who sit on it, as well as a few members of our council. That seems to be what people want to see as well. So we are seeing, people, the one that came across was about 500 jobs looking for 10 acres, major servicing requirements, those type of things, but agri-food for sure.
And then I guess on the local level, what do you see supporting companies like that? Like if you go to Elgin County, a lot of manufacturing, Amazon, Volkswagen, they're going to see a lot of infrastructure to support them. What are you seeing locally that is going to service those types of users?
So our servicing is something that we're working on upgrading to ensure we can accommodate them. Going through our OP plan right now, the renewal, we'll be looking to expand the boundaries and try and create some corridors where light industrial can occur. Currently we do have some lands, but going through our OP process right now is actually quite beneficial because we can kind of address what's been coming to the plate. So.
For sure. And from an OP perspective, they're planning residential housing, commercial, the integration of how that all kind of forms and functions when you pull out of your driveway. You're not driving directly into an industrial facility, but if you're working there, you want to be 15 minutes to work so you can live a good quality of life. Local business owners, I'd be so curious to know that have built businesses and grew it in Park Hill before Park Hill was really on, say, the southwestern Ontario map. Are you noticing any trends and transitions in their business, legacy, handing it over to new people or new businesses moving in? What's happening in that space?
Yeah, certainly we've actually had quite a few new businesses recently. One of the weird ones for us is we had a diving company come into Elsa Craig, which, we're not really the place to come dive. But for them, it was an opportunity where we were able to make it work. And they have a lot of people who go all over the world for diving. So it doesn't really matter location for them.
Sure.
They just like the community, small community, kind of fits the niche environment that they're looking for. In terms of existing businesses, we've seen a real uptick in our community improvement plan. So we earmarked $20,000 last year to local businesses to help improve their business. That can be, it's a 50% match grant up to $5,000 in construction. We do interest-free loans through that. We're looking to increase that amount of funding. Last year was the first year we've ever seen it fully utilized. So all our local businesses seem to participate. It can be anything from like accessible parking space upgrades, those type of things.
And there's some lenders here actually and people in the space where, on the real estate side, if I look at improving a property, a lot of times you can refinance and get the equity back. So if you're looking to make improvements, you're getting an interest-free loan, you can make the improvement and then refinance. You potentially have the ability of making an improvement to your business that will generate more income at the behest of the state. I think that's a really smart strategic way to do it. Any types of businesses you guys feel like you're lacking or you'd love to see?
So it's a pretty diverse mix what we have right now. The one thing I can say is we're serviced really well from the healthcare side of it, which is important to people. We are lucky enough to have 2 local pharmacies, 2 local grocery stores.
That was a question that came up with this property. Actually, people were asking about healthcare and proximity and so on and so forth. And when we did our research, that really stood out.
We're pretty intuitive on what's coming, I believe. Like with the residential growth, we are going to need to look at our medical facilities and say, is there an opportunity to work with developers incoming to say an increased medical center? And try and be players there where we can try and actually help the community through the developers and try and increase our service levels that way. And that's ultimately what it's about.
Yeah. Well, if you go to the GTA, Brooke can probably talk about this a little bit more later. I remember I got stuck on Spadina for like 45 minutes. I was talking to my sister. I'm like, why do you live here? I've moved 1 meter. But then when I moved here, I'm originally from Montreal and I moved out to Lambton Shores. My friends acted like I was moving to Thailand. And I'm like, it's 45 minutes. Like, it's not that far from here. Quick access to Strathroy, world-class hospitals in London. You could actually go over to the States if you have to do anything down there as well, too. Like, I think you guys probably have to look a little bit beyond your local environment and kind of integrate within other communities, too.
Yes, certainly you mentioned Strathroy Hospital. That's our local hospital, so we try and support them as best we can. I know our council is, in 2016, did a $400,000 donation to them towards an upgraded MRI machine. Certainly we're aware of what's around us. We're not trying to compete directly with them because if it's there and we can service another area, let's do that and make people come here for that rather than fight against each other. So I think we're pretty interconnected that way, especially in Middlesex County. Our economic development, as I said, the county kind of leads on the high end. So all of our local economic development employees, we all meet at a round table monthly to kind of discuss what's going on in each community, what strategies are you implementing to drive business there, pick each other's brain, group share, and then try and bring it back and try and improve our own municipalities. So
yeah, collaboration over competition. Same reason why we get a whole bunch of agents and people in the industry together is pick each other's brains. What are you seeing? On the new dev side, little insight, everybody thinks new development is absolutely dead. It's not like it was in 2020 to 2022. A lot of builders are building, model, sell it, can build another spec, like they're chugging along. And now we're getting calls for stuff where people are kind of in the planning stage. And it's like, okay, just trying to stay a few steps ahead so you can plan with the municipality, right? And I think you look at what other municipalities are doing. Dave Depensier is here, was head of the Ontario Building Association and told me, he's like, man, like getting in a room with my competitors is the best way for us all to elevate the industry. And I think from an economic development standpoint, that's why I started off our talk by saying I like municipalities that put a focus on that. Because if you can bring the jobs and you can bring great services, then it's a no-brainer to move somewhere. And then all of a sudden, when you move somewhere, then the friends start coming. And did you ever notice a trend of people leaving Park Hill and then all of a sudden making their way back?
yeah, so definitely I'm from Elsa Craig originally, and
Yeah.
I went to high school here. A lot of people my age moved away. And now it's starting to see them trickle back. So it is nice with the residential growth that we're experiencing.
Yep.
Certainly what's to come from that is we have 1,200 homes on the docket. So you have 1,200 new homes coming in. What's that mean? That means they probably need a place to work. Maybe they work in London. Maybe they're using us as a bedroom community.
Sure.
What we are trying to do is integrate them into our great community. As Carolyn explained earlier, volunteerism is actually really high here. Elsa Craig specifically, they have a welcome wagon approach to try and integrate the community in so that it's the same community that we had when we were 900 people as
Sure.
it will be when we're 3,000, 4,000.
Yeah. That's probably one of my favorite things. I remember my wife, Shannon, who's actually the brains of Prime. She opened up a business in Yorkville. She ran a consulting company after she did Ivy, and she said she was never as lonely as when she was in Toronto, a massive city. When she came back to a really small town, it was walking down the street and people keeping an eye on each other and kind of taking care of each other. But we're growing at the same time too, and I think those transitions are really important to pay attention to. It's beyond just going to work, coming home, shutting your garage, and going to bed. On the volunteer side of things, the trail system programs, like what do you guys have here locally that people could take advantage of?
Yeah, so actually trails is a good one because we are trying to develop our trail on Main Street there, and that's a partnership with our Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority. So it's kind of a joint effort. We're trying to make our communities connected. How you can do that is having a trail network that you can go from Main Street Park Hill
Yep.
to Main Street Elsa Craig to Main Street Nairn. Just trying to develop a framework that allows us to do it and having a volunteer base that can help us support it, because obviously it does come with a lot of resources and time that go with that.
Yeah.
The ABCA has been instrumental in helping us. That's the conservation authority here, and they're excellent to deal with. We've talked about our Sauble River network, where we can talk about doing kayak launches throughout the municipality, where we can drop them and pull them up in winter and try and make a network that way, and just increasing local activity so that everyone has something to do. And that way they're finding neighbors, hopefully through the interconnective relationships that are built, who share those same activities that they enjoy doing. So
Yeah.
instead of thinking, oh, they've got great kayak launches, it's, but also probably 3 or 4 of your neighbors do. And maybe it's a Saturday morning where you go out with the kids and kayak and do a group thing. Just trying to develop those so that they're there and try and make sure that everything's interconnected. So it's kind of breaks the Park Hill versus Elsa Craig.
Yep.
Obviously the growth helps do that because new residents don't know any different, and it kind of helps blend it together, and hopefully we see the connectivity come with that.
It's the same reason why we did the podcast talking about government officials, real estate professionals, actual investors. And like, I see too much division in the media. It's, the investor's fault that we're in the housing crisis. It's the builder's fault. They're making too much money. It's the government's fault because they're doing this. I'm like, we're all human beings that are more similar than we are different. I like the people that are proud about their local communities. But again, whether you're Park Hill, Elsa Craig, whether you're London, whether you're Toronto, there's different tools for different lifestyles. And there are people that want to be in the mix of things, have access to all the entertainment, games, restaurants that they have in the downtown Toronto area. And then there's other people that are in a stage of life where they absolutely get fired up about going kayaking, or I guess this winter you could have skated right down the river nonstop, but living the lifestyle that kind of speaks to them. And it's not a negative if one lifestyle is yours versus the other. Rob James likes to travel like the 1% and go to some nice places. But Nathan likes to rock out and play music. And like, when you find that community and you find the communities that are trying to build for your future, I think you feel like you found your home, right? And one reason I wanted to bring on the people from North Middlesex was, I think you almost have a clear identity of what your brand is as a community and the direction that you're going. Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority, I've dealt with them a lot, and I would say they're one of the better ones. Like, I've dealt with Kettle Creek, Upper Thames. I've gone all over the place trying to do what we do in real estate. And I think it's cool to just see our communities coming more and more together, trying to move forward, right? So I'm super happy I got to meet you today too. Hopefully we get to work some more in the future. We're going to break for lunch before we get to Brooke. We got the mayor. Fantastic. I'm going to bring the mayor on for a quick chat, and then we're going to break for lunch.
Right.
So thank you for your time.